Hi guys, I hope you're getting excited to do the Bend Marathon virtually, wherever you're at. That being said, running a marathon, you have some different things for warming up and recovery that you should keep in mind. You're about to run 26.2 miles, so you don't need a traditional warm-up. You don't need to run a lot beforehand because you're about to do 26, and you have some necessary glycogen you're gonna wanna keep in those muscles because you're gonna run out at some point. So also make sure you have an appropriate fueling strategy to help stave off that wall. So that being said, what I like to do before I run a marathon or any long distance, if I run at all, it's only 5 minutes, and it might be a run walk, nice and gentle, just to warm up the legs, but not to burn any of the necessary glycogen stores I have gotten prepared with the night before and that morning's meal. I also tend to take a gel or eat a banana really close to the start, which are all good strategies as well. What I tend to do to warm up my muscles, because you still want to get as much mobility in those hips and blood flow without stressing that glycogen system, is a nice foam rolling mobility routine that takes only about 10 minutes and really wakes up those hips, those feet, those calves, and prepares them for that constant stride. Because that's something else you have to think about, is you're gonna do 26 miles of the same stride unless you got some hills, but still, even so, you're in that forward plane a lot, and hip, calf, feet, getting them really primed to stay as healthy as you can throughout is also really important, because that's the goal, to feel as good as we can and to stay injury-free. So that being said, without further ado, my favorite tools, this is absolutely my favorite, the lacrosse ball. This is small. I put it in every bag I have, even if you just do your few problem areas, because we all have somewhere where you need to work a little bit more. Like for me, my calves tend to be one of the first spots to cramp around mile 22. Sometimes I don't have it. Also hips are another one. That's a big problem area. So making sure your hips move really well so that you don't end up with any knee pain, and can keep your form constant throughout. I also have a normal foam roller here. Most people have one of these. It's a great tool for getting those main muscle groups. I like this for more the specific smaller areas. Okay, I'm gonna bring you through a quick routine. We're gonna start with our feet. So your feet are really important. They're what start kind of all issues, kind of either our feet or hips. And your feet are what you land on, and you're gonna land a lot. So making sure your arch are ready, I go back and forth through that arch. And making sure I also get that lateral arch, that outside. Because if that gets locked up, that causes a lot of problems up the chain. So I'm going with the tissue here, going forward, getting that inside arch and the outside. I'm also gonna do a quick foot smash. So I'm gonna start low, and I'm just gonna shift my weight gently on. And this helps really relax that foot. I'm gonna roll forward on it, moving my weight towards my heel very gently. When I get to the end, then I'm gonna go to a quick movement. I'm gonna squeeze that ball with my toes a little and rotate my arch back and forth. Gently moving through that range of motion. I'm gonna do the same thing with my heel on that ball. Good. And release. Then I would do the other leg. After I've done both feet, I'm gonna move to my calf. I kind of like the lacrosse ball for my calf, but if that's too much, do your foam roller. My calves are a big problem spot for me with Achilles issues and multiple surgeries, but I also don't want to smash into my calf, because remember, we're warming up, we're not trying to just hammer it. So make sure it's still not too crazy. So move to the foam roller if it's too intense. You don't want to be fighting it, you're just trying to loosen up. So I'm going to start low, moving toward the rest of my body, going back and forth, starting with that soleus, which is that lower calf that kind of turns into that Achilles, and moving up into the gastroc, those nice calf muscles. I'm also going to go to the inside, and if I find a tight spot like I did just now, I'm going to move my foot up and down. Getting that release. I'm still focusing on those attachment points too, like right below that knee and on the outside, moving up along that peroneus tendon. So get both sides, find a spot, do some active release, but again, be gentle on it. From there, I'm gonna do my other calf as well, rolling that same, moving through that soleus and gastroc, getting that post tib and getting that anterior tibialis and peroneus tendon. These are a lot of your stabilizers as well. So especially if you're gonna be on trails, that's really important. Next, with the main big muscle groups like the hamstring, this is a little too intense for a pre-event or post when you're sore. I'm gonna move to that foam roller and get those hamstrings. If you wanna add a little, you can cross your leg on top. You can just gently go through, back and forth. I tend to focus, if I don't have a lot of time, on those attachment points. But quick on those hamstrings is good as well. We're gonna move to the glutes next. I'm gonna stay with this, but this is also an option for that glute area. Again, we just wanna wake it up. So I'm gonna get on it, I have both hands down. I'm gonna bring one leg over the other one and I'm gonna rotate into that glute med. And then I'm gonna just pressing off with my hands and that other leg that's on the ground, roll that out. And I might shift back and forth, just warming up and loosening that muscle. And then I'd move to the other side. Again, I'm just trying to wake it up. Moving up that chain, I'm gonna release some of that low back and moving up to the upper back in between the scapula. And this also is gonna wake up my core a little bit. So we're gonna do these small thoracic movements, working our way up the spine. And when I start low back, I'm just do small movement, kind of an inch area at a time, really focusing on that one spot. You're gonna have a little core activation here, which is not a bad thing to wake up as well. Then I'm gonna roll a little bit further. Gentle thoracic motion. And move up a little bit. If it's too much for you on the core, feel free to put your elbows onto that foam roller or on the ground. Just make sure you're protecting that spine and keeping a neutral neck position while you do it. Moving my way up. Little thoracic. And the reason I'm not doing this big movement here is that low back piece. You don't want to overextend that. We're focusing just on that release where the foam roller is. Again, we're just trying to be gentle here. You might get a nice little pop. Pops are okay as long as there's no pain. Just moving some space around and release. So we just worked up the whole posterior chain. Now we're gonna get the front half of the body. So this is another spot a lot of people get tight on, especially if you're dorsiflexing your feet the whole time. So when you're running, also think about that. Are you staying in dorsiflexion the whole time? Make sure to relax your foot in the air. So we're gonna release that area though, just to prep it, give it as much of a chance to stay loose and to start the race feeling as good as possible. So I'm rolling right there. I might find some spots and hinge back and load it and move my foot up and down, especially as I move closer to that knee and where that fibula head is, which is that outer bone, that bone that kind of sticks out right below your knee. I'm moving my way up to there. You can really feel that tightness when I move my foot as I move up. And right there, I'm right below my fibula head. Whew. So just so you know where that is, that's right here. So here's my kneecap. You can feel for that bony piece right there. You're going right beside it and below it. All right, when you're done that, this is my favorite one to release right above all these attachments right here. I like to use this before using the foam roller for the entire quad. So you're gonna get right above that kneecap. I'm gonna angle so you can see me really well. And I'm gonna come down onto my forearms and then still brace with your belly button a little bit to that back so you're not arching that low back too much, or you can lay all the way down, and I'm just gonna go across that kneecap. And if I find a spot that's tight, especially in the inside for me, I'm gonna bend and straighten for an active release. And I'm not cranking down on this too much, guys. So remember, that's really important. You're just trying to release it. You're not trying to smash anything right now. It's not the time to make anything overly sore. You're just trying to warm it up and make everything glide and move really well. And I would do that on both kneecaps, right above. Then I would move to my entire quads. So I'm gonna do something similar where I come out, keeping my core tight, and then I'm just gonna push that forward and back. Again, I might find a spot, I might bend and straighten if I need to. Just gonna quickly roll out those quads. Good. And again, I tend to focus more on those attachments, but I think it's still beneficial to roll out those main muscle groups as well. Next, my favorite part of the whole thing. If I only do one spot, it's usually this spot. Right in that TFL, so right where that crease is when you bend over, so right under my iliac crest, you want to target right there. It's a big spot for hip strength, activation, and a lot of things are coming around and attaching up in that hip. So it's really important to make sure this is loose. So find that crease, that's where you put that lacrosse ball. You're gonna come down on it, bring the other knee up at an angle, forearms down again, still protecting that low back, and I'm gonna go back and forth with the grain, and I'm also gonna go against it side to side. I might shift up on this hand, move a little more outside. I might move lower into that upper trochanter as well. So really be aware of where your spots are. And if you need to shift positions or roll a different way, find your spots. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. You'll be like, oh, right there. If it hurts too much, use something softer than a lacrosse ball here. You could go to your foam roller.